The GOP is a little bit closer, 205 to Democrats 190. So some of the races here locally we're focusing on. The race for District 21 right now, neck and neck. This is the current map. So it goes from Bakersfield up to Hanford. Does not really go north of Hanford, but this map, if it gets approved by voters, you can see it encompasses a lot of western Fresno County, and it has a different shape to it. It's really stark side by side. Yeah, I mean, Stephanie, it does, just because of the fact that it was House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's seat. Now, as we know, he did leave Congress in the middle of his term. Supporters here are very energized, not really because of this race, but just overall some of the wins that Republicans have had earlier in the night have kept the mood here energized. But when you talk about this race specifically, people are a little tense. Getting new numbers throughout the night tonight. Take a look. Adam Gray just has the smallest lead, 182 votes over Congressman John Duarte. Another thing that's different from 2 years ago is now you are a sitting congressman, you are the incumbent, and you have a record. How do you feel voters are reacting to your record in Congress so far? But I think what really makes the difference here, what was the money? When it comes down to that logistically, Fong had a very well-funded campaign with local money, but also money from McCarthy's allies, from people in D.C. Now, in this district, there are more registered Democrats than Republicans. So Republicans who hold a very, very slim majority in the House of Representatives are trying to hold on to every single seat they have, including this one. So the Democrats who are trying to gain control, trying to flip as many seats as possible, they have really narrowed in on this one because of the close results from 2 years ago and because of that registration data. She was also reminding people, hey, this is for Stanislaus County. If you're from Merced County, if you're from San Joaquin County, you're not supposed to be voting here. They don't have your information. They also gave more information about if you are a first-time voter, there might be a few more steps that you need to do to make sure that they have you on their record. And part of your role as senator is to vote on cabinet officials who are nominated by the president. There have been a number of just very controversial picks to lead important departments from defense, national security. You know, what concerns do you have for some of the president-elect's nominations? Yeah, these guys, they're no strangers to each other. They ran against each other back in 2022. Of course, David Valadao won against Rudy Salas, and we're seeing that same exact matchup this time. We have been listening into the meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and, of course, President Donald Trump. We've been learning a little bit about what was going on before the meeting. We know that they met for at least 3 hours. At one point, they were supposed to get lunch with some other officials and then go to the press conference. We're not sure what happened there. But just to wrap up the press conference from what we heard for so far, they're calling it a productive meeting. President Trump saying that they agreed on most points. Some of the points that they didn't agree on, he says, are either significant or not very significant, but there's one significant point. He didn't go into detail there. He says he will call people up and, of course, call Zelensky, but it's going to be up to them to come up with an agreement. So we are tracking this. I can tell you things have been tense here all night as they wait for results for this race, but even Congressman Duarte tells us himself he is feeling encouraged and a little energized by some of the national results that have been coming in throughout the night. We talked to him a little bit about how he's been doing in this race. He says that they have been using every single resource they have, all the money they have, to try to reach every voter and get them out to the polls. He says that's been a little different than 2022. They have more money this year, but he says they are still being outspent by his opponent, Adam Gray. Another thing we talked about when I spoke with him was he was saying that this time he has a record to actually run on, and he didn't have that record in 2022 because Adam Gray, if you remember, he was in the state assembly. Meanwhile, Congressman John Duarte, he is an incumbent freshman congressman, so this is his first time in public office. So he didn't have that record to run on, and he says he is running on being the most moderate Republican in Congress, and he says it has helped him, and he really feels like that is connecting with voters when he goes out and talks to them. So for results, we are still standing by and waiting for those results to trickle in, but I'm going to send it back to you in the studio. Phones are always on us, and with close races and high stakes, candidates are doing whatever they can to get voters' attention, and a simple text can help.
Very irritated. Very irritated. It's on TV, it's on the radio, it's everywhere. So yeah, it's like you can't even breathe without it being in your face.
And it's on our phones. Text messages asking for your vote and even sometimes your money. Messages like these ones, sometimes greeting you by name and urging you to vote for them. Oftentimes even accompanied by a picture or a video message. With information overload, shorter attention spans, and a changing media landscape, campaigns are doing whatever they can to reach voters.
Many voters aren't out looking, and so the question is, can you influence their vote by having them come across something?
UC Merced politics professor Nate Monroe says these texts can sometimes do the trick.
Campaigns are able to directly feed their message into our phone in a way that we just reflexively are going to see. And even if we see it and we push it away immediately because we're not interested, there's a sort of psychological effect there where we've been exposed and we can't totally get rid of that.
But why are some of us getting so many? Monroe says campaigns can get public records about likely voters and can buy data sets to get our phone numbers. While they can't see who you voted for, they might be able to see when you showed up to vote in the past. So if you feel like you get more campaign texts than your friends, a campaign might think your opinion could be swayed, or they can count on you to show up. He says even the content of the message you read can be targeted and crafted specific to you and your data. But who's sending them and paying for them? Oftentimes, it's not just the candidate and their campaign. Political action committees, independent expenditures, and the party organizations all play a role. The other reason we see so many? Money. Monroe says they're much cheaper to send than paying for a TV ad spot, and it's more targeted than TV, potentially putting the message right in front of the right voter. Monroe says texts aren't too different from seeing a campaign road sign.
Name recognition, right, is such a huge part of what causes a candidate to go from being a total, sort of long shot to a reasonably qualified candidate. It's just purely in their name. But those local elections, right, it's a potentially really cost-effective strategy.
And of course, if you want to opt out, you can always reply with the word stop. Reporting in the studio, Katherine Phillips, KC24 Local News That Matters.
I think we were a little surprised, taken a little off guard by it.
Merced Mayor Matthew Serrato reacting to some of the new proposals put out in the California High-Speed Rail Authority's new report today. The report looks into different plans to connect the Central Valley to either the Bay Area or LA County, and some of the plans include skipping the city of Merced, at least for now. The report looks at a few different options, starting with the current Merced to Bakersfield plan, and says this specific scenario would not achieve a positive, profitable outcome. It then goes on to show other options, including a few where instead of going to Merced with high-speed rail, they connect Madera to Gilroy and then offer service to Merced with regional railways. Something Serrato says would be unfortunate as the city has been planning for the station for years.
We have a whole area around the station, which is ripe for transit-oriented development as well, and for a lot of economic development. So could really have a significant negative impact if it doesn't arrive.
Other options look at connecting Bakersfield to Palmdale, something California High-Speed Rail Authority board member Henry Perea says has always been a part of the plan.
We were always intending to connect to the big population center of the state. It was never a Central Valley high-speed rail system. That did not make sense. That was never the plan. So now we're at the point of construction where we're saying, okay, moving forward, where do we go?
Perea says these are all still just proposals and doesn't impact the work they're already doing. He says even if the project changes and they don't build to Merced right away, the city will eventually get connected to the project as the authority wants to connect up to Sacramento. Still, Republican State Assembly member David Tongipa says he's had enough and was especially concerned with how the report states high-speed rail wants to attract private partnerships.
They actually finally admitted that I think a lot of people said. They stated that this portion would not be profitable for a long time, and now at least they are finally saying the truth there. What private entity is going to say, yeah, I'm going to invest in that while the federal government looks at trying to dismantle it?
So Eric Insetti, the Merced mayor, says they're still hopeful the rail does choose to come to Merced first. And he says they will continue to speak with the board at upcoming board meetings. Well, when it comes to Gilroy to the Bay, Perea says they made a lot of progress on fixing up Caltrain lines for the project so it can connect. We're live in the studio tonight. Katherine Phillips, KC24, Local News That Matters. Yeah, they are. Michael Maher held a press conference today to respond to the cease and desist letter. And we were able to talk to Congressman Costa about why they sent the letter in the first place. Maher says they're sticking with the facts, but Costa says that's just not the case. This letter sent to Republican candidate Michael Maher on behalf of Democratic Congressman Jim Costa says his recent ad titled 10 Presidents is both false and misleading, and they need to stop playing it immediately. In response, Maher defending his ad during a press conference in downtown Fresno Monday.
I had 30 seconds to be able to get a message out, which is what? He's a lifetime politician.
The ad starts with the narrator reading the words, 10 presidents have come and gone since Jim Costa first went to Washington 50 years ago. Costa says this is false, and when this term is up, he would have served 20 years in the House. He was first elected to Congress in 2004 and started his first term in 2005 when George W. Bush was president.
It's an effort to mislead people, to try to create an impression that I've been there too long. There's a lot of Republicans that have been there longer than 20 years, so I don't think that's a very good reason.
But Maher's campaign says their ad is accurate, citing an article where Costa said he was a Hill intern in 1973.
The backup for that is he went to Washington in 1973. He has a great article talking about exactly that time, the summer of '73, working in Washington, D.C., attending Watergate hearings. So when he went to Washington in 1973, there's been 10 presidents since then.
Costa's team also says in their letter the ad is misleading when the on-screen text says after decades in Congress, Costa authored 2 bills, accompanied by a narrator saying 2 bills signed into law, one to rename a post office, the other about a stamp.
They're called give me bills. Bills when a member can't get something passed. One of those bills was a post office getting renamed in Fowler, and the second bill was about a stamp.
Costa says on top of money he's helped bring to the district for projects, he sponsored many other pieces of legislation that oftentimes makes it into law, but just not in its original form.
Usually it becomes attached to part of a larger piece of legislation, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Transportation Act, as an example, are in the Farm Bill that we authorize every 5 years. And they know that, but they want to mislead people.
So as of right now, the ad is still posted online to his campaign website. Costa's letter says they will pursue legal action if the ad stays up. We're live in the studio tonight. Katherine Phillips, KC24 Local News That Matters.